So today, I'm going to be telling you my number one soft skill for software engineers. Whether you're new to the field or you've been in the field for a couple of years, either way, if you master this skill, it's going to benefit you and your career. So before we dive in, let's talk about the role of the company. So as a company, normally you have a mission. So everything that you do on a daily basis and every person that works for that company, everything that they contribute should be working towards that mission. So maybe they have a goal such as, let's revolutionize the automotive industry. Or maybe it's something even dumb like, let's just all get rich. So everything that is done, every feature, every user story, every meeting should be working towards that overall mission of what the company wants to achieve. So now let's talk about you. Yeah, you're a software engineer, right? What's your job? Write code for the company, right? No, your job is to help the company complete their mission. That's it. You're going to write code, of course, to do this, but it's to help the company achieve their mission. The company doesn't care whether you've made the most beautiful algorithm that anyone's ever seen, or that you've created a new architecture that's just unheard of in the engineering industry. What they care about is you providing value to their mission. So now let's switch gears for a bit. Let's talk about things that software engineers really love. Unit testing, automated pipelines, cool software architectures, awesome algorithms that do things that you can barely understand, but they're super cool. So yeah, the list could go on forever. However, at your next meeting, you're never gonna see your project manager, your product owner jump up and be like, Will, I think we should really consider moving from Angular to React. No one says that. No one. However, as engineers, we know that these best practices are out there so that we have a clean and sustainable code base. So now we're in a pickle. We know that we need these best practices to have a clean and sustainable code base, but the business just tells us, hey, just go ahead and add that next feature. After all, it's gonna get you closer to the company mission, right? And provide the company value. So what we need to do is show the value of these best practices and investments. Unit testing is probably the easiest example. So let's walk through a conversation about unit testing that might go really poorly. Hey Will, we have some more feature work and coming down the pipeline, and I was just wondering if we could just go ahead and jump on these right away. Okay, yeah, I'm finishing up some unit tests right now, so I can jump on those stories like right after I'm done with this. Does that sound okay? Well, the client really wants it right now, so we need to get this feature done and out the door. Okay, well, I guess I can skip some unit testing and just go ahead and push this through, and then I think we're good to go, and then I can just go ahead and jump on those features. Does that sound great? Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks, Will. So as you can see from that conversation, the unit testing was just completely disregarded. And from an engineering perspective, this is really sad. But to a business perspective, this doesn't matter at all. So this is where I'm talking about we need to show the value of these engineering practices to the business-oriented people. So now we just sacrifice best practices to get another feature out the door. And you may be thinking, this isn't a big deal. It's just a couple of unit tests. Maybe the feature was just changing the styles of a button, or maybe it's a pop-up on that button or something like that. So, that may not be a big deal, but think about that when it happens 5 times, 10 times, 50 times, and it happens all the time in numerous companies. And this is how we're creating that tech debt and adding it to the code base. And this is something that we don't want. So now let's take a look back at our previous conversation and just think about how it might have gone differently. Hey, Will, we have some features coming down the pipe. Once you're done with that feature, could you just go ahead and jump on these right away? Okay, yeah, I'm finishing up my feature, and then I need to add some unit tests. Is that okay? And then I can work on it after that? Well, the client really wants it right now, so we need to get it out the door. So if I skip testing now, and then this feature has a bug, it's probably gonna cause a lot of headaches for the clients, and then we're gonna have to have someone work on it again just to figure out what the issue was. Okay, well, I guess we can push the deadline back. It's not too big of a deal, but the client still really wants it. But either way, we can push it back and kind of work with this. Of course, conversations never take place like this in the real world. This is just to show you an example conversation and what we really need to highlight to the business-oriented people within a company. The really important part of the conversation where we talked about the unit testing was we showed the value of the unit test. When the business person heard, oh, this might cause a lot of headaches to clients, and then we have to not only fix it, but then the clients are going to be mad because the feature doesn't work, well, that's just, why wouldn't we just add test? And so the business person was able to see that the unit tests were adding so much value when it really doesn't take a lot of effort. And that's my number one soft skill that I want you to learn. Learn how to communicate those investments of those best practices and then show the value of those best practices and investments to non-technical people. So you may be saying, well, this product manager assigns all my tasks and they determine the priority of the work. Now, I'm here to tell you that it actually is a little bit different in the industry. Any product manager or product owner, whatever the name may be at your company, they expect this conversation to happen. This continually happens because the business people usually understand that there's a take and there's a give for these engineering practices. And so these conversations need to happen a lot. So any normal product manager expects this conversation to happen. And they expect their software engineers to say, hey, this needs to be reworked because, the use case might have changed or whatever. It's a normal conversation, and this happens a lot in the industry, like daily. So now we've entered the critical part of this conversation, and that's showing the benefit compared to the effort. So how hard is it to add unit tests? It's not hard at all. And if it is hard for you, then there's other issues. So anyways, it's not hard to add unit tests. Now, how much is that going to help the company? Tremendously. So if these unit tests are like an automated pipeline, which they usually are, and so let's say someone's adding, onto your feature that you worked on 3 months ago, and then they think it should work a certain way. Turns out it doesn't, and then they still push it out there, and then the unit tests break, or they fail. And so then that way their feature is not going to go out to production. It's not going to cause all those clients a headache. You saved yourself all because you put in a little bit more effort and you're reaping the benefits based on that. So just by adding a little more investment, it's going to help the company. Now this isn't directly helping them, but it's indirectly by helping them get to their mission faster and also being on a stable track. Because the thing is if you didn't add any tests and then you were like 5 years into this company and then all of a sudden something breaks and no one can figure out why because there's no tests, your stability is like standing on stilts. That's something that you don't want. So it's really important to communicate these software engineering best practices to business-oriented people. Now, you could be taking this a different way. And you could be like, well, Will, I tried this and they didn't listen to anything I said. Well, yes, there's take and give, just as I talked about. Because a business is a business at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, the business is a business. And so the work that's coming down the pipeline may be more important than refactoring an old piece of legacy code. And so that's where you have to have that take and give. And so what this usually comes down to is a misunderstanding between you and your project manager. You think that, this refactor, it really needs to happen, then you're probably not understanding the project manager's priorities and how important this work coming down the pipe is. And so they might need to communicate that a little more clearly. Or the other way around is the project manager may not really see the value. And so that's where you failed as an engineer, and you really need to show the value of these things. And so that they understand, oh, well, yes, adding a new feature would be awesome, but having a really stable product is pretty cool too. And so if you really communicate that to business-oriented people, then they're going to understand what you're talking about. Of course, we can come up with the cleanest solution that we can, but sometimes businesses just override, those when other priorities may be more important. Because if there's a product that a lot of users aren't really using, but that the code's really, really sloppy and that, really bothers you, right? Because we've all seen ugly code, but 90% of your clients use this product over here and they need to add a new feature, it's pretty obvious to see there. Yes, from an engineering standpoint, ugly code is horrible. But at the same time, you have to understand the business value. You're only fixing it for, let's say, 1% of clients. And that's not going to cause a huge hit to the business if literally all of them left. However, adding a new feature for 90% of your clients, it's an easy win. And so that's where you also have to put yourself in the shoes of the business-oriented people and what they're seeing with the work coming down the pipeline. Well, the other question that might happen is, what if our personal goals don't align with the company mission? So the other part of it is sometimes these things just don't align. And, you may say, well, I really want to switch from Angular to React. And, maybe there's a really good use case for it. But the business people are like, no, we already have this set. Like, yes, it would be a decent investment, but we're pretty set in Angular. We've already hired a bunch of Angular people, so we want to stick with this. And at this point, this is when you have to find a new job. I mean, if you want to work on React and everyone's working on Angular, then, it's pretty set in stone. You just need to find somewhere else. And that's perfectly okay. Companies and employees don't always align. So to conclude, learn how to communicate those investments and those best practices that you make as a software engineer to non-technical people. And show the value of those investments. Don't just say, these are best practices, this is what everyone does. Show the business people the value of what you're getting out of that. Again, this doesn't mean that your runtimes need to be the fastest, because who's gonna care about that your list runs in log in time compared to log in? No one's gonna care. It's roughly gonna be about the same unless it's a huge data set. And in that case, that's when you need to communicate it. But if they click on a button and they're sorting employees and there's only gonna be about 50 max, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And so this is where you have to use your judgment on if what you're doing is really a worthy time investment and it's gonna help the company achieve their mission, or if it's just something that you want to do. Overall, the thing that you need to keep in mind is that the business team and the engineering team, they have the same goal in mind. They want to create the best product for their clients and users. And that's why we all work for the same company. So going into these conversations with that mindset is going to be extremely helpful, because you have to remember that you're on the same team. You're on the same side. It's not engineering versus designers or engineering versus product or anything like that. You're all working for the same goal. So just keep that in mind when you're having these conversations, because then they turn into really respectful conversations that are also very valuable. So that is my number one soft skill for new software engineers, or just software engineers in general. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, leave a like and go ahead and click that subscribe button so that way I can produce more content like this. Thanks for watching.